I'm a fitness influencer. Of course I flex before sex. Start without me, babe. My quads are looking amazing.
Okay. Is this not just the average gym influencer at this point? Bro cares more about his pump than his own partner.
If you're bulking up, it's going to make you fatter. Does that look like the physique of a guy who's bulky?
Yeah, so for context of that clip, this guy Greg Doucette is trying to argue that this man on screen right now called Joe Fazer is apparently not natural. Yeah, okay then. Alright everyone, welcome back. Today, Greg Doucette has officially lost his mind. Now recently I've been doing a ton of these videos talking about fitness influencers, and this one, Greg Doucette, is very similar to the other gym influencers I've already reacted to, in that I quite actually like this guy. However, recently I stumbled across Code for No Longer Natty Joe Fazer, in which Greg Doucette here is sitting here trying to say that Joe Fazer, who is another gym influencer you all watch, is apparently not natty. I just don't see at all how that can be the case just by taking one look at that guy. But let's just see what Greg Doucette thinks, because I'm very interested.
And so essentially, he's tried everything. He's tried powerlifting training, bodybuilding training, showed you how hard he's lifting. He's traveled the world doing everything to try to put on muscle, except going to the dark side. Except using performance-enhancing drugs. And over the last several months, his physique, in my opinion, and others, and yours, it's began to look a little sus.
Hang on, what? Bro, don't start dragging me into this. When did I say that Joe Fazer's progress was looking a little sus? For those that don't know who Joe is, he's pretty much a 6'3", 20-something-year-old that's always been relatively skinny his whole entire YouTube journey, and has been documenting him finally getting bigger. So his progress has taken years and years to achieve, right? Recently though, Joe lost all of his gains because he just completely stopped going to the gym, and then he went on a mission after that to try and get them back. This screenshot on screen right now is what he looks like right now. Now this video isn't to say that there's no possibility that Joe Fazer would ever hop on steroids or has ever hopped on steroids and isn't natural, but from this photo right here, it's a little bit of a stretch to say that he's on gear.
You have to agree that Joe Fazer appears to have made significant changes in his physique this year in compared to his previous years. And remember, as a newbie lifter in the gym, you're going to experience the most potential growth when you first start lifting. It's called newbie gains. It's a real thing. And so when you're a teenager, you first start training the first 1, 2, 3, perhaps even 4 years, you're going to put on significantly more muscle than when you train in your later years. Joe Fazer, he's no longer a teenager. He's now 21 years of age. And if you've been training for several years, you can't expect to suddenly put on a ton of muscle at the age of 21 in compared to your previous years.
Well, look, Greg does have a point here, right? You really only do experience newbie gains in the first year or so of your training. But what Greg's failing to realize here is that as well as that, if you stop going to the gym for a very long time and lose all of your progress, like Joe did when he took a few months off, when you come back and start going to the gym again, you do start to get some of those newbie gains back again. Even if you had been going to the gym for a really long time before that, if you stop going for a while and then come back, you will have newbie gains again. That's how that works.
But suddenly, in the past several months, Joe has put on a ton of muscle. And so when I first got a little suspicious, it was on March 13th, he posted a picture on Instagram titled, "We bulking," and he left it at that. He didn't say he was going on a calorie surplus. He didn't say, "I'm trying to increase body fat," just simply, "we bulking." And oftentimes in the bodybuilding world, when people say we bulking, it's code for we're going to put on a ton of muscle, and they don't want to say why. They're not going to out themselves, but oftentimes we bulking, they're going to be taking something to help increase their ability to put on muscle.
Alright, Greg, you've lost me here a little bit with your chit chat. I don't know about you, but whenever someone says that they're bulking, the first thing that comes to my mind is them actually bulking and eating more food, not taking fucking steroids. That's just me though. I don't know, Greg, maybe in your life bulking is code for taking steroids. I don't know what planet you're living on to think that, but if that's your code, then be my guest.
And so he did his best. He trained as hard as he could, watched all the videos, traveled the world, tried everything. But nothing seemed to put on the amount of muscle that he was hoping to. Perhaps it was from watching videos of other people who made amazing transformations and he thought, well, why is this not happening to me? Why can't I put on 20 pounds of muscle?
No, Greg, that's not what happened. The entire reason you made this video in the first place was because Joe Fazer lost all of his gains, then had a huge transformation after that to put all the muscle back on. He wouldn't have felt demotivated thinking, wow, I've tried everything and it hasn't worked. He literally stopped lifting altogether. He knew he was gonna lose all of his gains. I don't think that during that time period of him not going to the gym, he actually probably cared. Also, the before and after photos, to be completely honest with you, as much as they look suspicious, you've got to gotta remember that influencers can fool you all the time. They can use camera angles and lighting to make it seem like they're much smaller before and then much bigger after. Using dim lighting in the before photo and good lighting in the after one can trick you so easily, and Joe Fazer is no exception to this, and he's done that perfectly here. So if my point wasn't already established before, no, I don't think that Joe Fazer is on gear.
Does that look like the physique of a guy who's bulking? I don't see an increase in body fat. When you're bulking and consuming extra calories, they don't suddenly all turn to muscle and give you a shredded physique. If you're bulking up, it's going to make you fatter.
Greg, I don't know if you're blind or something, or again, you just don't understand that influencers can manipulate their pictures on Instagram to make them look bigger or shredded, but that seems to be exactly what Joe is doing here. Sure, he looks shredded, he looks incredible, and he looks so much better than he did before he started. But that doesn't mean he looks like that in real life. It's the same thing again that girls do on Instagram. People complain all the time about girls going on Instagram and changing their faces to look prettier. They change the way they look to be more attractive. They could be a 9 on Instagram, a 9 out of 10, absolutely stunning. But once you see them in real life, they're a 5. That's the way that social media and society works these days. It's an unfortunate truth that we all have to deal with. But with the rapidly expanding gym influencer community we've got on YouTube and Instagram, we've now got men who do it as well. It's no longer exclusive to just women, right? So many gym influencers now edit their photos to make themselves look bigger. And Greg, I don't know if you realize this, but Joe Fazer is no exception to this. So yes, if you look at it from an Instagram perspective, yeah, sure, he looks great and it might be a little suspicious. But look at his raw, unfiltered YouTube videos, and that will give you a lot better of a representation. In these before and after photos, right, the before photo, he's clearly got terrible lighting, he's got no pump, and he just looks really terrible. He looks like the worst he'd ever look at that point. But then the after photo, he's done the perfect lighting, he's clearly had a massive pump in all the show-off muscles, you know, the shoulders, the arms, the chest and everything. So you can't really judge how he truly looks just by these two photos.
And compare my photos of when I was abusing performance-enhancing drugs back in the day to right now, and you'll see my face looked to be a lot fuller. I wasn't fat. In fact, I was shredded, but my face looked puffier than last time. That is from the abuse of performance-enhancing drugs. And so when I see Joe Fazer's face in these photos, I do believe he doesn't look natural. Not because he's so massive, he's not the size of Chris Bumstead, but when you suddenly put on a bunch of muscle, and you've been training for multiple years and your face looks like that, it's most likely the result of taking performance-enhancing drugs.
I mean, I guess some could say that's a valid argument, but saying that someone has a puffy face due to taking performance-enhancing drugs alone just makes literally no sense. Where is the puffiness coming from, Greg? It sure as hell isn't coming from just whatever's in the steroids. I'll tell you what, from my personal experience, there was a period of about 6 months last year where I went from being 72 kg, then 6 months later I was 79 kg, which I'm still at to this day. During those 6 months, I had taken before and after pictures, and you could clearly notice that my face became more and more puffy as a result from my bulk. That's obviously not a steroid problem, I'm not a fucking meathead. That's a result of a ton of carbs and water being heavily in my system during my bulk. I was and still do eat a ton of pasta, bread, rice, any sort of carbs you can think of, everything you can think of. So obviously I'm going to retain a lot more water and carbs, which not only stays in the muscles a fair bit, but it also, in mine and Joe Fazer's case, stays in the face.
His most recent photo, gains. Left it at that. Gains. Does not want to say how many gains he made. Not going to say I gained 12 pounds of muscle, would be obvious. Imagine, I put on 12 pounds of muscle while bulking. We would know that was not done natural. If you start to quantify your results, people are going to say, you couldn't have done that. We watched that video, in 2 years, you hardly put on any muscle, suddenly put on 12 pounds, would not make sense. How could this be possible? Also, as I glance at the nips, they do look to be a little puffier than last time. And so I can't be sure, it's not like he's posted his blood work, but his nips do appear puffier than last time.
This is so far probably the first point that Greg's made that actually kind of makes sense. Go, I know which Greg is talking about here. Pretty much just happens when, as a man, you start to develop literal breast mass on your chest and not muscle. Like, not fat, but literal breast mass. Which, as a man, is obviously something that you don't want. As well as that, your nipples start to become more pointy, and Greg's saying that that could be a sign that someone's on steroids. However, there's been plenty of cases cases where gyno has simply just been a case-by-case thing and people get it by chance or just like the way that they're living can influence it, and that it actually had nothing to do with PEDs. But to be fair, a side effect of taking steroids is gyno, so I guess Greg does have somewhat of a point here. So although I can finally agree with Greg on this, I still don't think that that's enough evidence at all to say that he's not natural.
He also appears to have several stretch marks in the chest and shoulders, which most often are a result of putting on a lot of size in a short period of time.
Okay, I literally have stretch marks on my chest, and I'll tell you what, I'm sure as hell not taking PEDs. And also for Joe, I'm pretty sure that he's had stretch marks for over 3 years now. I've been watching him for a while. The guy's had them ever since he started lifting. This isn't some new thing that he's acquired.
And so I made the comment, natty or not, and I put in the little eyeballs to say, hey, I'm checking you out. I want to see what's going on here. Comments, bro is suspicious. He's not been natty for months now. Come on, surely you can see that. Have a word, Greg. But someone said, no, I think he's natural, and this is what he's using as his defense. He benches 110 kilograms. That's 242 pounds. And so do I. And I've been only training for 8 months, and I was cutting for half of that, and I'm natty, so he most likely is too. Just because somebody is not strong does not mean they're 100% natural.
Yeah, I can't lie. Whoever the fuck commented that stupid shit needs their Instagram account deleted. Being stronger than someone and being natural does not in any way prove that the person who's weaker than you is natural as well. That's the dumbest offense I've ever seen. However, it does bring up a decent point though. Joe's clearly gained a lot of size in a short period of time, but what about his strength? Last time I checked, he benches 2 plates as a 1 rep max, but has his strength gone up in the process? If it hasn't, then that's a pretty good defense for him still being natural. Anyway, I'm done. Click the video on screen right now because YouTube thinks you'll enjoy it, and I'll see you all over there. Subscribe.